All right. Good evening. Um, it's good to be here with you this evening. And last week was my first week doing a simulcast, Facebook and YouTube. And that's what I'm doing tonight. And so, but tonight I'm a little bit stressed, a little bit uh, nervous tonight. I've had some computer issues this week, and my MacBook is down, maybe shot, and I've had to set up in a different computer setup. So, if you're here with me tonight, what I'm going to ask from you is that, first of all, if you're here tonight, are you hearing me clearly? Can you hear what I'm saying? If you're listening, if you can just let me know, just say things sound good. Give me a thumbs up, something like that. And but I think everything's working well. I think everything's going to be fine tonight with the setup that I have. And yeah, and so back this simulcast, my goal is for this to continue to be every Tuesday night on YouTube and on Facebook. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. And so, I'm going to be talking about a topic tonight. It's a little specific. It may not apply to everybody that shows up this evening. I think there are some things, though, that will be here that will be able to speak to everybody. And so, yeah. Let me look at something here real quick, guys. Sorry. It actually looks like I may not have gone live on Facebook. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Everything should be starting. Anyway, we'll go ahead here with things on YouTube. Sorry. All right. So, yeah. All right. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about, I'm a certified addiction recovery coach. I actually have been working with men in the area of drug and alcohol addiction for over 40 years. But for the last 8 years or so, my main focus, went back to school, got new certifications, new training, and my main focus for the past 8 years or so has been unhealthy sexual behavior and sex addiction. And what we're going to be speaking to tonight is we're going to be speaking to men specifically on a topic related to this. Here's what we're going to be looking at tonight. So, there's something that I see take place with men a lot in the area of unhealthy sexual behavior, whether it's pornography, strip clubs, massage parlors, extramarital affairs, and betrayal. What we're going to talk about tonight is an area that causes a lot of damage, even though people many times are trying to do the right thing. And what I'm talking about specifically is I work with a lot of men who, after being caught, whether they're caught with pornography, strip clubs, massage parlors, in an extramarital affair, men will be caught. After being caught, I see a lot of men sit down with their spouse and tell their spouse everything. They open up and spill it all out there, just they and their wives. In fact, just this week, I've been meeting with somebody, and he has intended to do what's called a full therapeutic disclosure, and was just getting started in the process of working through that. But his wife confronted him on some things this week and pressed him. And so he sat down with his wife and opened up and told her everything about all of his behaviors and how far back they go. Now, here's something that I want to say. I want you to hear what I'm saying clearly. It is important that we practice honesty, that we practice vulnerability and openness. But in situations like this, men will open up, wives will ask, they'll suspect or they'll catch something. They'll ask, and men will open up, tell everything, and for a moment, as the man is sharing, he experiences something that feels like freedom. For many of us, we've been living with a lot of things bottled up inside of us for weeks or months or years. And all of a sudden, we begin to open up about these things, and we experience a sense of freedom. It's finally out there. We're finally not hiding anything anymore. And that's a good thing if it's structured and takes place in a healthy way. But what often happens in these situations, for the spouse, is not healing. What happens when we open up and really, in essence, dump all this information on our spouse really can produce a lot of damage in our relationship and in our marriage. Because after betrayal, your spouse isn't primarily asking for details. What she's asking internally in her heart and in her mind, what she's asking is, am I safe with you now? Has everything been a lie? Am I ever going to be able to trust this man again? And this is what she's struggling with. This is what is taking place. And so, when we dump, we create tremendous damage in the life of our spouse. When it does not take place in a healthy way. And so, here's what I want to walk through with you for a few minutes here. Why is it that sometimes in these situations, men who have hidden things for their entire life, all of a sudden all of a sudden step in and share everything. Well, for many of us, what's been taking place is we have been carrying a tremendous burden of shame. We have been living in fear of exposure, fear of being caught. We've been living in fear that if I'm exposed, if I'm caught, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my marriage. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose maybe my home. And so we're living in shame. We're living in fear. We're also experiencing a loss of control. And in that loss of control, in that fight, flight, or freeze mode that's taking place, we determine that we have to fix things, and we have to fix things now, in the present, immediately. And this sense of urgency pushes us to just get it all out into the open right now, right now. So in that moment, when we've been exposed, when we've been caught, in that moment, telling everything feels like honesty. But it's often driven by a need for relief. And relief for you and for me can become trauma for our spouse or our significant other. Becomes trauma for them. What feels liberating for me to get it all out into the light, all out into the open, becomes trauma for our spouse. Here's what's happening for our spouse in situations like this. It's what is commonly referred to today as betrayal trauma. And here's what betrayal trauma looks like. In simple terms, betrayal trauma is not just hurt feelings. It's a nervous system response. In that moment, while we're experiencing perhaps that sense of freedom, our spouse is experiencing a loss of safety. She's experiencing a loss of trust. And she is even experiencing a loss of reality. What else do I not know? What else is out there that I might learn? What's taking place? What's going on here? And so, in that, in the immediate where our spouse finds herself often, is that the person that has been the primary provider in many cases of comfort, of community and connection, of care, all of a sudden, this person that's been that primary provider of these things in her life, in a split second, becomes the person that's caused her the most pain that she's ever experienced in her life, and has caused her to feel the most unsafe. And she's caught because internally a part of her still wants connection, but another part of her is terrified to risk that again. When trust is broken, The brain goes into protection mode, not information mode. She may say that she wants to know everything that you've done. The question is she in a place where she can process that in a healthy way? And I would present that she's not really asking, even though she may be saying, tell me everything. That's not really the question that she's asking. The question she's asking is, am I safe now? Am I safe? Now, here is why details, us spilling our guts and putting everything out there when we haven't had an opportunity to organize and make sure that we're doing a full disclosure, and she doesn't have somebody there to care for her and to help her process. When we dump everything on her, what she experiences is emotional flooding. All of her emotions are triggered and come to the surface in the immediate and in the present. She experiences graphic or intrusive thoughts. The things that you're telling her that she's done, her mind is attempting to present a picture there for her. And when she's not able to process that in a healthy place with proper support, and you are not the one to provide that proper support, when she is not able to process that in a safe environment with proper support, she becomes overwhelmed in every sense of the word. And she loses all sense of stability. Now, there's a line that comes from C.S. Lewis. And he makes a statement. He says, if everything is transparent, then nothing can be seen. Now, how does that apply to what I'm talking about here? When everything is dumped all at once, nothing can actually be processed and nothing can be seen clearly. More information doesn't equal more safety. And we need to understand that. And that's why we need to resist. Yes, we want to be honest. Yes, we want to get everything out there into the open, everything that she wants and needs to hear. But we want to do that in a way where she has the support and the care that she needs, where it's not experienced so much as trauma. So a question then becomes, in situations like this, what actually builds a sense of safety? And again, that's what our spouse is looking for: safety. And I want you to listen to this. This is extremely important, because what we're going to be talking about here is patterns over time. I meet with men all the time, and their wife has found out that they have been unfaithful, or has found out that they've had an ongoing struggle with strip clubs, pornography, massage parlors. And the wife finds this out. And our mindset is, let's get it all out here into the open and then get over it. And we are looking for something to take place quickly and in an immediate sense. But what's going to happen, what's going to create safety in the heart and mind of our spouse is patterns, consistent patterns over time. Patterns over time. And consistency is going to be one of those patterns. So what does consistency look like? Let me give you an example or two of what consistency doesn't look like. I'm a part of a group that meets on Monday evenings. It's made up of men that struggle with all kinds of addiction, but the majority are men who are struggling with unhealthy sexual behavior of some sort. And men get caught. I see this so often. Men get caught and they start a program, they go to a meeting, they see a counselor or a coach or a therapist, but we all have it in our heads that we are going to set a new speed record for recovery and for change. Your wife's not able to receive that because her world has just been rocked. And what she's going to respond to is consistency. With a lot of these men, I'm not even saying most of them, this is a few, but just as an example, I'll see men come into a meeting or begin to meet with me for individual work, and they've been caught, they're in trouble, they're afraid they're going to end up in divorce. The wife has put them in a spare bedroom, put them on the couch, or even put them out of the house completely. And so in the immediate, the man responds by coming to a group, by coming to see me for coaching. And he comes consistently for a few weeks. And then we get word that his wife has allowed him to move back into the bedroom. She's allowed him to move back into the house. The pressure is off in his mind. And he stops attending group. He stops coming to coaching sessions or to counseling. He stops because the immediate pressure is off. This doesn't provide a sense or a pattern of consistency. Your wife needs to see long-term consistency. She also needs a pattern that she needs to see in our lives is proactive honesty. In 12-step groups, they talk about something called rigorous honesty. And what that means is that for me personally, when I was living in addiction, in active addiction, when somebody asked me a question, now I was divorced long before I got in trouble in my addiction. I was already divorced. But when somebody asked me a question, and you've heard me share this before, when somebody asked a question, my initial response was never, "What's the truth?" My immediate response was, "What do I need to say to stay safe? What do I need to say to take the pressure off?" Can anybody relate to that? Am I the only one that has ever thought that when asked a question? What do they want to hear? What's going to provide me with safety in this situation? In rigorous honesty, in proactive honesty, our immediate response has to be, What is the truth? What is the truth? And then we speak that out. We share that. What is the truth? We share honesty. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I had a gentleman I was working with years ago, and he had been married for years. And he had, even prior to his marriage, prior to meeting his wife and his engagement, he was involved with massage parlors and with prostitutes. And that behavior continued through his marriage. And when he reached out to me, it had just been discovered by his wife. And he called me on the phone while his wife was throwing some of his belongings out an upstairs window. And we began to work. He was convinced his marriage was over. We began to work. And one of the things that we talked about was rigorous honesty and proactive honesty. And in that, he took some steps, and some of those steps he took were things like giving his wife control of the finances, like putting an app on his phone that allowed his wife to see where he was at any time. And he made a commitment that anytime she asked a question, he would be honest. And he came home from work one day, and he came in, went over to her. The marriage was still together. They were struggling, but she was allowing him to stay home. She had made a decision to try to work through things. And he came in. She was in the dining or in the kitchen area. He went in, gave her a peck on the cheek. And as he did so, she asked him, "Did you stop anywhere on the way home today?" And his immediate response, because he was a lot like me, when somebody asks a question, what do we need to say for us to be safe? And his immediate response to that question, "Did you stop anywhere on the way home today?" was to say no. Nope, didn't stop anywhere, came straight home from work. And he turned to walk away, and he didn't make it halfway across the room when he realized he just lied to his wife. He had made a stop at a convenience store to get a soda. He didn't stop to do anything that was wrong, didn't stop to do anything that was questionable, but he did stop to get a soda. Now, was that a big deal? Was that a big deal? For a lot of people, it wouldn't have been. But because of the betrayal his wife had experienced, if she found out that he lied about something as simple as that, it would have been a big deal. And he recognized that. And he immediately stopped as he was crossing the room. He turned around, he walked back over, and he said to his wife, "I didn't tell you the truth just then. I made a stop." And he told her, "I stopped and got a soda. I still have the receipt in the car. The empty bottle is in the car. I can get them for you if you'd like." And she was able to receive that. And consistent behavior in that area over time began to restore a sense of safety. Also, a pattern over time that can be important is accountability and structure. That can come through a group meeting. I know that some of you that are here tonight, I'm in group meetings with some of you from time to time. I've been in group meetings with some of you this week. That accountability can come through regular group meetings. If in those group meetings we are practicing proactive honesty, rigorous honesty, it can come through coaching or counseling. A conclusion that all of us have to come to at some point in time is that we can't fix things by ourselves. It's not possible. We need healthy community. We also need emotional regulation. We need to begin to do work to recognize what we're feeling. There's that statement, you hear me say this every week, behind every behavior is a feeling. Behind every feeling is a need. The idea with that statement is that there are needs that are present in our life. Those needs, most of the time, are valid needs. And many of those needs have existed for us since childhood. When those needs are not met in a healthy way, they produce feelings of insecurity, sadness, loneliness, shame. They produce these unmet needs, produce feelings in our life. And those feelings, when we don't process those feelings in a healthy way, those feelings lead to unhealthy behavior and to our addictions. And the problem that most of us struggle with is we try to work the process beginning with a focus on behavior. But focusing on the behavior and chasing the behavior just leads to exhaustion. We have to begin to experience emotional regulation. We have to begin to learn to recognize, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What's triggering this? And then follow through. When we commit to something, when we tell our spouse, I'm going to start going to a meeting, I'm going to get help, I'm going to see a coach, I'm going to see a counselor, we follow through with that. We don't allow those meetings or those sessions to become hit or miss. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to see a counselor or a coach or a therapist for the rest of our lives. But this isn't going to be worked out in a few weeks. And we need to follow through with the commitments that we make, especially to the person that we've hurt. So safety isn't built in a moment. That's what all of us are wanting. That's what all of us who have caused the harm are shooting for. But it doesn't work that way. Safety is not built in a moment. It's built in patterns. It's built in consistency. Your spouse doesn't need to chase the truth. She doesn't need to be watching and searching constantly to make sure that you're doing what you said you will. You need to speak honestly and truthfully, and then you need to follow through. Many spouses in situations where betrayal is found are okay not knowing every detail. But what they all want is to know that everything is being processed and taken care of by that husband in a healthy place. Many times, if she knows that we are a part of a group, that we are seeing a counselor, and we're doing the work, I've heard wives say dozens of times, I don't need to know every time you have a bad thought. She'll follow through by telling what she does need to know. But she'll say, as long as these smaller things are being discussed and you're sharing them in your group, you're sharing them with your coach and with your counselor, that's what I need to know, is that you're working through these things with somebody. Now, often to clients, maybe whether you've been with me, whether I've been your coach or you've been in a meeting with me, or we've sat and talked. I often tell clients, I often tell people, not everybody needs to hear everything, but somebody needs to hear everything. I see what you say there, Richard. The biggest hurdle for you is giving up control of your life and relying on others with knowledge. Very, very strong, very wise statement. Here's the deal with what we share and who we share it with. Many of you know my background, my addiction. With over 20 years in ministry, my addiction took me from a pulpit on Sunday to a jail cell on Thursday. And I didn't get out for 2 years. Now, that's been 16 years ago. I don't stand on a soapbox on a street corner and share my story and my struggles with everybody that walks by. I don't do that. But I have to have people that I am able to be completely honest with, completely open with. I experience that kind of freedom in my Monday night group. And that Monday night group is not an optional thing for me. The joke in that group is if Ron lives to be 100, one of those young punks will be pushing him into that meeting in a wheelchair. I have that Monday night meeting. I have a couple online groups that I attend as I'm able to, where I'm able to be open and honest. I actually am open and honest here in a lot of ways with you guys. I was sharing last week as I talked about lament, and I opened up, and I don't share about this particular thing to many people, but I shared here last week about that idea that my dream had always been, I was married. I loved my wife from all my heart. I just did a piss poor job of showing her that and communicating that to her because I was shut down and locked up emotionally. But my dream for my life, we were on a path, my ex-wife and I, we were on a path where in our mid to late 40s, our kids would have been grown and our house would have been paid for. And my dream was to grow old sitting on my front porch. We had a porch swing on the front porch. And my dream in life was to grow old sitting in that front porch swing with my wife and with my grandkids playing around my feet. There aren't many people that have heard that. People in my Monday night group have heard that. I have a friend, Rob, that I talk to regularly. He's heard that. You guys that were here last week heard that, and you hear it again tonight. I don't share that with everybody, and we don't need to share everything with everybody. But we have to have some place in our life where we have that community where freedom is present for us to be open and honest and real about anything that's on our heart. We need that place. If we don't have that safe place where we can be open and honest without fear of judgment, without fear of shame, if we don't have that, if nobody hears it, secrecy continues. Now, on the other side of that, if everybody hears it, damage increases. So what's needed? What's needed is the right truth in the right place at the right time with the right people. We can think of this kind of like containers that are safe to hold these things that are a part of us. Those containers can be a group, can be an individual person that we have a relationship with. It can be a coach, it can be a therapist. Your spouse may not need to carry everything. In fact, it may not be healthy for her to try to carry everything. But what she does need to know, what she does need to be confident of, is that nothing she needs to know is being hidden. Nothing is being hidden. She needs to know that we are talking it out with somebody. Talking it out with somebody. There are two therapists, and I can't remember their names. I should be able to, but I can't. But two therapists that do a lot of work that their work and their study has concluded that none of us are able to process things in isolation. We have to have healthy community to be able to process fear and shame and these unhealthy sides of these emotions that are present in us. So, we're going to talk about some practical guidance here for a few minutes. If you're here and you're married and your wife doesn't know everything, maybe you're here and you're not married, but you hope to be married someday. Practical guidance. If you are caught in unhealthy behavior, specifically unhealthy sexual behavior, I don't care what that looks like. It can be that we're cheating on our wife. It can be that we're visiting massage parlors. It may be that we're acting out with pornography. Don't rush into full disclosure alone. What many men do is we rush into disclosure, and in the moment, we think we're telling everything. And then a few hours later, or the next day, or the next week, we realize that we didn't tell everything. And now we feel like we need to go back and tell more. And that process of disclosure becomes a long, drawn-out deal where every time we're spilling something else out, we're jabbing another dagger into the heart of our spouse. So don't rush into full disclosure alone. A full therapeutic disclosure is facilitated by a coach, a counselor, a therapist that works with you to help you get everything down on paper and get everything out there in an outline. And in that full therapeutic disclosure, a coach or a counselor or a therapist works with your spouse to prepare her for what's coming and to walk with her through that disclosure as these things are shared. So don't do it alone. Just this week, just earlier this week, I had a guy tell me, this is exactly what he said. He said, I know you have told me to work through this disclosure process with you, and we'll present this to my wife. And that I need to make sure that she has somebody there to help her to process it as it's presented to her. And he said some things took place this week. He said in my group, I've had multiple people tell me that. Don't rush through this. Don't do it alone. And he said, this week some things happened. And I did what everybody told me not to. And I just started spilling everything out there. And he said, I've been put out of my house. And my wife has an appointment scheduled with a divorce attorney. Now, I'm not telling you that going through a full therapeutic disclosure is absolutely going to save your marriage, but it is going to increase the odds. Don't rush into it alone. Number 2, get support immediately. Immediately. Don't drag it out for weeks or for a month. If everything's been brought into the light, find that group, find that coach or that counselor, and find them today. Find them and meet with them. Get support immediately. Create a plan. A written plan is always the best first step. Begin to put together a plan that we can work through, that we have in writing, because as pressure and stress comes on us as things take place, if we don't have a written plan, we're going to end up flying by the seat of our pants, and we're going to cause more damage and more harm. Now, these steps, let me ask you this. These steps that I'm talking about here, don't rush into a disclosure. Get support immediately. Create a plan. Are these things going to build safety, or are they going to take it away? I think the only answer is that they're going to build safety. They're going to build safety for you, and they're going to begin to create safety for your spouse. Doing it right is always, always, always more important than doing it fast. That's been a hard concept for me to understand, because I slide into panic mode and I want to do it and I want to get it done now and get it over with. But doing it right is always, always more important than doing it fast. All right. I'm going to wrap things up. We're going to finish up a little bit early tonight. In recovery, the goal is not just to tell the truth. We want to tell the truth. We want to be men that are honest. But in recovery, the goal is not just to tell the truth. The goal needs to be more than that. It needs to be bigger than that. The goal needs to be to become someone who is safe to be in a relationship with. That's my question for you tonight. One of my questions for you. Are you a person who's safe to be in a relationship with? Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe a better question is, are you in the process of becoming a person who's safe to be in a relationship with? So, if you're in this place right now, there are things in your life that are hidden. There are things in your life that have maybe been discovered, but you haven't been fully honest. If you find yourself in this place right now, slow down. Don't allow yourself to get into a hurry. Slow down. Get support. You don't have to fix everything tonight, but you can start building safety today. You can start building safety today. You can begin to restore those damaged relationships. Now, next week, we're going to get back. Tonight, I had some problems. I'm on a new setup. Last week was my first week simulcasting. This week, I'm on a totally different setup for simulcasting because my laptop went down. And I had some problems in the beginning with Facebook. And so I haven't been able to be on Facebook tonight. But next week, when we get together, again, Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Let's Talk Recovery Live. What we're going to take a look at next week is when I try to become my own higher power. We're going to take a look at addiction, self-reliance, worship, and surrender. Now, you might ask yourself, how do those four things tie together? Well, let me tell you, they do. They do tie together, and they are important. When I try to become my own higher power, when I try to convince myself that I have to fix this myself, I have to do it on my own. We're going to talk about that next week when we get together. So I want to thank each of you for being here tonight. I do have to tell you, being here on YouTube is a good thing. I get a lot more interaction from you guys here on YouTube than I do from the guys that watch live on Facebook. And I like the comments and I like the interaction. And I appreciate you guys being here with me this evening. And so that's going to be it for tonight. I'll throw out two things. One thing real quick. I want to invite you, if you haven't done so, I want to invite you to visit my website, rw-coaching.com. And you may or may not be aware of it, but I post a blog every Wednesday. It comes out every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. That blog is posted on my website. But if you're interested in receiving that blog, you can go to my website. You can click on the page for the blog and you can subscribe there. And that blog will come to you in your email every week, 9 a.m. on Wednesday. So I want to invite you to think about that. Maybe take a look at doing that if it's something that you might be interested in. All right, guys, thanks for being here. And I hope to see all of you back again next Tuesday. Have a good evening.